on AFR Talk. I am your host, Brian Fisher. Great to have you as part of the conversation today aboard the USS Focal Point. It is our patrol boat. This is not a pleasure cruise. This is a patrol boat in which we patrol the choppy waters of America's public life, looking relentlessly for the intersection of truth and politics, the intersection between truth and public policy. Our commander is on the bridge. The scriptures, our map, the Holy Spirit, our navigator, and I serve as your loyal, humble, and cheerful first mate. Honored to welcome to our decision maker line special guest Doug Wead. Doug is a presidential historian, and he is a New York Times best-selling author. He's been an advisor to 2 American presidents, and in 2012, he took a sabbatical from writing to serve as a senior advisor to the Ron Paul presidential campaign. Doug Wead, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Hey, thank you, Brian. Great to be with you.
Well, it's great to have you on, Doug. And this isn't the main thing I wanted to talk about, but there's been a lot of buzz today, and I want to get your take on this about Ron Paul. He's going to go on Jay Leno tonight to make an announcement. A lot of speculation that maybe he's going to run as a third-party candidate, maybe run on the Libertarian ticket with Gary Johnson, either as the vice president or swap places and run as the presidential candidate. You got any insight to offer on what Ron Paul is going to do?
Yes, I have a little. I'm a senior advisor still to the Ron Paul campaign, and no, he's not going to run third party, and he's not going to run on the Libertarian ticket.
Now, he's been saying he's got this announcement to make on Jay Leno tonight. What's he going to tell people?
Well, I'm not going to preempt what he has to say, but his work will be ongoing. His work for liberty and for making the Federal Reserve more accountable. He wants it transparent so we can see how much money they're creating and to whom they're giving that money.
Doug, let me ask you this question. I understand you don't want to preempt him and all that. I appreciate that. But what's the reaction of the Republican Party elites going to be to what Ron Paul has to say tonight?
Well, the elite would like Ron Paul to go away because Republicans as well as Democrats in the elite benefit from 0% interest loans. They benefit directly in some cases because some corporations, in addition to some banks, are getting hundreds of billions and millions of dollars in free new money. And they benefit indirectly with good loans that come from those banks. So, of course, the establishment, major advertisers on the media, and therefore executives on the media, are not real happy with Ron Paul. He's kind of pulled the curtain back on we've always had central banks in modern times and needed them, but it's become a little corrupt, very corrupt. And he's kind of exposed that, and a lot of people aren't very happy.
Now, let me ask you this, Doug. I want to get into the topic of Mitt Romney here very quickly, but I was on the convention floor when that voice vote was taken on changing the convention rules, and I was really disturbed. It seemed to me like the no's were actually louder, at least, than the ayes. I don't know if there was more of them or just they were making more noise, but it clearly seemed to me that the no's were at least 50-50 with the ayes. And then we get this home footage on somebody's cell phone that was on the teleprompter. John Boehner was just reading off the teleprompter. The ayes have it. So what was up with that?
Well, that's how business is run. The Republican National Committee is not a democracy. It's a private club, and it's run by people who have power. And there's quite a contest to get that power, and once they have it, they hang on to it. So nothing new about that.
Now that brings me,
as Lord Acton says, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
And Doug, that brings me to the subject of a blog I read of yours over the weekend that I found fascinating and kind of thought-provoking, and want to have you talk a little bit about it. Basically, the title of your piece, I think, was Romney's Revenge. I don't know if that was your title or if somebody put that on there. But you talk in this piece about the fact that I hope I don't put words in your mouth here, correct me if I'm wrong, but that Romney has almost a visceral dislike or distaste for evangelicals and that he may be already out to try to neutralize, marginalize, I don't know what word to use is stronger than that, but just marginalize or virtually eliminate the evangelical voice in the Republican Party.
Yeah, I don't think there's much doubt about that. In the 2008 McCain convention, Republican National Convention in St. Paul, the Romney folks were busy taking over the Rules Committee. McCain didn't care. This was his last try. And so the rules were rewritten. Some LDS states were moved up. Arizona, Colorado, and some other western states were moved up. The South, which is very powerful, a strong Super Tuesday, evangelical states all vote on the same day. That was broken up into pieces so that no more than 2 or 3 southern states appeared on the same weekend, and it was made proportional so that if Romney didn't actually carry a state, which he didn't, he would still get some delegates to add to his aggregate growing total. So there was no question, and maybe deserved. Romney may feel that born-again Christians have targeted the LDS as a cult and said that publicly, and the fact that he would react is only human.
I was pretty amazed, Doug, at the Thursday night program at the Republican National Convention, where one Mormon after another came out and told very touching stories, tributes to Mitt Romney, and I accept all of that. I think he's a great husband, he's a great father, he's a great Mormon, and all that. But it was the words that they used. It was a $50 million makeover for the Mormon church. They use words, Doug, that I almost never hear Mormons use. They use words like congregation. Well, I was around Mormons for 25 years in Idaho. They referred to wards or stakes, but never to congregations. They were bishops or elders, but they never referred to pastors. All of a sudden, that's all we heard. Mitt Romney was a pastor, and then the man who talked replaced him as pastor. That was his term. Talked about Mormon clergy. That's a term they never, ever use. So it looked to me like this was a $50 million makeover for the Mormon church to create the impression in the minds of Americans who don't know better that the Mormon church is simply another evangelical denomination almost.
Well, I worked in the Bush Senior White House, and I experienced the bias against Mormons. I was attempting to get Ezra Taft Benson the Medal of Freedom, and I had Mormon leaders in the White House pull me aside and said, don't even try, because they had experienced bigotry before. And I have applauded Romney's appeal to the Jewish votes. I think he's going to have the strongest Jewish vote since Ronald Reagan. He's got big Ben Ginsburg and Kaufman and so many on his team. That's good. I strongly applaud and appreciate his appeal to the Catholic vote. I mean, the keynote speakers, Christie and Rubio, and go right down the list, were all Catholic. Of the first 9 speakers, they were Catholic. Ryan is Catholic. We have 6 Catholics on the Supreme Court now. So we've got the Republican Party has a very strong relationship with Catholics, and that bodes well for a general election. But 48% of the American population are born-again Christians, and they were excluded. Sarah Palin was not invited. Huckabee was invited, then turned down, then finally invited again because he wasn't opposed to Todd Aiken, who's a born-again Christian running for the Senate in Missouri.
Now, let me interject here, Doug. Let me interject, because that was a fascinating part to me of your blog. What you're saying is that Huckabee was invited, but he came out for Todd Aiken, defended Todd Aiken, supported Todd Aiken, would not back down from his support for Todd Aiken. And so the Romney people said, well, in that case, you're not speaking at the Republican National Convention. Huckabee wouldn't be intimidated, and they wound up letting him back on the schedule.
Yes, that's the story I heard from insiders who are old friends who worked together with me in the Bush Senior White House, who are now in the Romney camp. So there's a concern. Michelle Bachmann, who's a born-again Christian, had no place on the podium. I'm concerned for Romney. I don't think he's going to win this election unless he's generous and he grows with these constituencies, makes everyone feel that they have a sense of ownership and participation. I remember the Reagan campaign so well. We gave everybody a title. We made room for everybody. We grew with every new constituency that came our way. You can't just diss people. And as Karl Rove said in his private meeting, if Todd Aiken ended up murdered somewhere, don't look for my whereabouts. He said, you can't have that kind of mentality and expect to win.
We got about a minute left here, Doug, and this is my question. I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I have, and this is just sort of a sense I have. I've experienced a little bit of this from Governor Romney, directed personally to me, attacked me personally at the Values Voters Summit last year. I spoke right after him, and he attacked me before I came up on the platform in his remarks. So I've experienced a little bit of that. And it seems like there can be kind of a mean streak in Mitt Romney, and it seems, if that's true, he seems to be targeting that mean streak right now at evangelicals. And the question I've got for you, Doug, is he going to be constitutionally capable of making nice with evangelicals?
I would not expect much coming from him right now. And as psychologists say, hurt people hurt people. And he's had a tough experience, as many members of the Mormon Church have, and at the hands of born-again Christians who believe differently. And this is payback time. If he's not going to champion the evangelicals now, if he's not going to have Sarah Palin on his stage now when he needs their votes to win the election, it's going to be a long, long time, those 4 years of a Romney presidency, before evangelicals get a chance again.
And you say, last comment, just about 30 seconds, you say that the rule changes allow the RNC to change the rules right up until the next convention. What does that mean? What's that going to mean? That
can mean that Mitt Romney, if he wins the presidency, will be renominated without much fuss. And if he loses, he has a very good chance of coming back as the nominee to run against Hillary Clinton in 2016.
Our guest has been Doug Wead, New York Times bestselling author, an advisor to 2 American presidents, and a senior advisor to the Ron Paul presidential campaign. Doug, thank you so much for taking time to be with us, and have a great rest of your Monday.